It's no secret that one of the greatest differentiators between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people follow a process, and they perfect that process and they keep working that process, whereas unsuccessful people often leave things to chance. Today we're going to talk about the client value journey, the process that clients go through mentally from stranger all the way to raving fan. And here with me is Angel Gonzalez, our CMO here at Snappy Kraken, who's an expert on this value journey. Angel, why is the customer value journey so important for advisors to understand?
Well, the reason why it's so important for advisors to understand is because it gives them a framework for how to think about the journey that a prospect goes through on the way to becoming a client, a happy client, and a raving fan. So this can either be built intentionally or it can be left up to chance. If it's left to chance, it's likely you're going to have drop-off. It's likely to be a very rocky, unsuccessful journey. So we want our advisors, we want our members at Snappy Kraken to have a very thought through, very successful journey that is predictable, so they don't have to use willpower or remind themselves what they need to do at every step of the journey.
Excellent. So we're going to take each phase of this journey one at a time and talk about why it's important for advisors and how they can implement it.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
All right, so the first stage is the aware stage. It's the very first stage that a prospect goes through. At this point, they're a stranger.
Okay.
So you want to give me a couple examples of what an advisor can do at the aware stage in order to get that stranger to know about them?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, nobody knows you exist. We're going to assume that.
Right.
So it's about making people aware that you exist.
Sure.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the easiest phases because there's no real expectation at this phase. They don't know you, like you, or trust you yet. You just want them to know you exist, right? So that could be everything from sponsoring a sign at a ballpark, a billboard on a main thoroughfare, sponsoring an ad at the beginning of a radio show,
Right.
Running ads online, getting tens of thousands of impressions circulated in local journals, sending out mailers, really any channel that's available to you to get in front of your target audience to make them aware of your brand is relevant at the awareness stage.
Great. So in that whole journey, there's different stages, and the purpose of, and I'm going to go to campaigns for a second, to marketing and using campaigns is to help move a person from one stage in the journey to the next. So you just covered awareness, and everything you just mentioned were tactics related to getting someone to be aware of you. So the next stage we're going to talk about is the engage stage.
Okay.
This is where a prospect already knows about you, and now they're being pulled in deeper into the relationship. This is kind of the ping pong back and forth of what a conversation looks like, or the ping pong of valuable content that makes that prospect know a little bit more about you, know a little bit more about what you offer, and know a little bit more about themselves and important questions they should be asking before they get into a relationship with any financial advisor. So you want to give me some examples of what else an advisor can do to move a prospect through that whole engage stage?
Right. So once they're at the engagement stage, it assumes that something about the awareness stage motivated them to take another step.
Right.
Right. So
and that could be a click through to a website, a click through to a blog post, a click through to from a social media post to find out more about what the advisor is talking about.
Right. So you're actually giving specific examples of engagement that could happen. So it could be somebody reading a blog post. It could be somebody watching a video. It could be them consuming some other type of content, such as a podcast, a radio show, a recording of a blog, market commentary, a newsletter, anything that they have taken the awareness stage, acted on it in some way, and are now engaging with your brand. Visiting the homepage of your website. All those things are various forms of engagement.
Right. So the next stage after that is a subscribe stage. This is where there's been some type of trade of an email address or a number, and that's been given over to the financial advisor in order to move on to the next stage after that. So we've just talked about awareness, we've talked about engagement, and now we've talked about the deeper level right after engagement, which is
Subscription.
Subscription.
Yeah. And so this is where it gets a little trickier, right? Because a lot of businesses can create awareness. A billboard can create awareness,
Right.
But getting somebody to actually visit the website that's on that billboard and engage with it long enough to become interested and then actually subscribe, that's where it's trickier. And so subscriptions happen on landing pages, they happen on websites, they happen through phone calling in, but the key here is to motivate people. There's something about your brand that has to build trust, resonate with them, address a need they have, and give them enough of a prompting to actually subscribe. So it could be something like a lead magnet where they provide a simple, not too much information, a name and an email address, for example. It could be something like calling in to register for an event.
Right.
It could be bringing a box of old paperwork to your company shred day to have it shredded. And in the process, they sign up with their email address to register for their time slot. All of these things are forms of subscription.
Great. So the next stage after that is convert. So they've already subscribed, they've given you the email address or their mailing address or their phone number, and now there's a stage called convert.
Now, how is that different than subscription?
So the way this is different from subscription is where subscription is just giving you the contact info and enabling you to get in touch with them. Conversion is all about a transaction. So that can be done in different ways. That could be done with money. Maybe someone gave you money to buy some small item, or the biggest thing is time. Someone committed, they're giving you time in exchange for something else. That could look like an in-office, in-person meeting. It can look like a phone review, some type of consultation. So there's a little bit of a trade there. Something of value is traded from the prospect to something of value from the advisor.
Yeah, that's excellent. So the difference is in what you do with that information, how you actually get them to exchange something of value in addition to their information, which is what they started with.
Right.
So you would call a conversion, for example, booking a meeting in person, or booking a phone consultation or a video chat. You would call it opening a small account. You would call it getting a free financial review, a tax analysis, a fee analysis. You would call it coming to a company event, coming and spending their time at a seminar or a wine tasting or a golf tournament, buying tickets to a charity event that you're hosting. Those would be forms of conversion.
Right. And this is a perfect setup for the next stage of the process, which a lot of people drop off. So the next stage of the process is excite. So someone has converted, they've given you their valuable time, they've given you some effort or energy. Now it's up to you to really excite them, make them glad that they got into that convert stage.
That's excellent. So Angel, I don't know how you do this. I mean, you've got somebody now, you've got their information, they've bought in, they've spent time with you. I mean, isn't that enough? How do you have to get them excited now?
Well, exciting could be the excitement stage is you actually deliver on something you promised. Let's say you called them in to your office to do some type of review. It's important that you wow them, right? We live in an age now where people, if you don't wow somebody, if you don't exceed their expectations, then you're mediocre. And mediocre isn't enough. Being average isn't enough. And the way you wow them, there's a whole range of ways that you can wow somebody. From the way you greet them when they walk into your office, from the way they're greeted when someone answers the phone, to the way you close, to the way you make them feel after you finish having a conversation with them on the phone, to the way you follow up with them after you've had that initial conversation.
Yeah, this is exciting stuff because actually what you're saying is advisors can differentiate without even dealing with product by the experience. That's a way to wow people. Also by, for example, if you do a tax analysis with somebody and you show them how you can save them all this money on taxes, or how you can save them all this money in fees, or how they're taking too much risk in their portfolio, or how they are able to serve their estate better in the future by implementing a few new strategies. If you can do that in a way that's really exciting, it'll motivate them to want to move to the next step.
Right. And remember, if we take a step back, that convert stage, that could be someone who's still on the fence and hasn't become a client yet, or it could be someone who has decided to become a client of yours. So there's always an opportunity to excite someone, whether that's after an in-person consultation or after they've initially signed up. If it's after they initially signed up with you, the way you onboard that client, that's the opportunity to excite them. You could really, there are a lot of risks there and a lot of opportunities to really drop the ball on somebody once they get on the other side of the curtain. So it's really important to keep that energy up, make them glad they decided to take those steps with you.
That's such a good point. It makes me think about our 90-day new client onboarding campaign that automatically sends personal messages from the advisor to the client every week for that first part of the critical relationship, and then at various intervals all the way up through the first few months.
Right.
And how important that is to make them feel really connected and appreciated when they're new.
Yeah, it keeps the advisor accountable. It goes out regularly. There's a schedule with it, and it gives that new client an opportunity to also reply, to call in, and just maintain that relationship. That way they don't feel like they've been forgotten. That way they don't feel like, okay, well, they just did a bunch of stuff to get me through the door. I guess I'm just another number now. It's really making them feel like a person.
And this is where acts of kindness come in as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. So you've got them excited, right? Things are happening. They're excited about. Now what?
Now the next stage is ascend. This is, think of a ladder, right? You want to ascend people to the next rung up, whether that's a deeper interaction with your services, whether that's asking for more and more value from you as the advisor, giving you opportunities to provide them, and value stack on top of that client. So I know you have a lot of experience with this. I'm sure you can give me tons of examples of what the ascension stage looks like. Bringing in a client and just getting them graduated up a level and a level after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of advisors don't really do that in their business. They don't look at all the various types of ways that they can serve a client. But you certainly can ascend. You can start with one small ACAT and a little bit of a managed account, and you can expand it into assisting them with their estate planning, assisting them with helping their children and grandchildren, college planning. You can assist them with actually sitting down with their existing attorney and CPA and helping triangulate everything. You can assist them by getting all their documents in order for them and really helping them to get nice, simple online access. And all of these things take time, but as you build the relationship and you stack those things, what happens is the client's getting more and more value. That makes you more valuable to them. It diminishes the chance they're ever going to leave you. And it also gives you an opportunity to build relationships with others in their family. By continuing to ascend that, not just with that individual client, but with hopefully all their beneficiaries and their entire estate.
So it's great that you talked about family or friends, because that really leads into the final two stages or the final two aspects of the journey. And the next one after ascend is advocate. So you've provided this great service, you've converted people, you've excited them, you've ascended them up the ladder, and you want to make sure that that they're going to be open about the value and the service that you have provided for them. That when asked, hey, do you know an advisor that I should talk to? Hey, I'm considering retirement, or my husband and I are looking into college planning for our small family that we're starting. That's the advocate stage. You want a client to be able to come up to bat for the financial advisor and really talk about the service and the value that they've received.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is an education process. You can't expect your clients to advocate for you if you don't give them the ammo. And so a lot of times that just involves helping them identify the right people to talk to and also giving them the words to say. I know a lot of times, as I've been coaching advisors over the years, they'll say, I don't want to ask for a referral. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And I understand. You don't want to come across as desperate. There's better ways to do it. But you can frame it so that the client feels like you're doing them a real favor by offering to do a little bit of pro bono work for their dearest friends and family, by giving them access to your knowledge without making that process difficult, that you're going to roll out the red carpet for those people by virtue of the relationship. And there's other ways as well, but empowering them to do that even digitally. There's a very appropriate, well-placed message that you can send to a client at the right time to ask for them to forward it to a friend or share it with a friend. Right. That can lead to a referral. There's a very comfortable way to get a client to come to a certain type of event and bring a friend, and that becomes a referral. So you can ascend and expand that relationship simply by doing it thoughtfully, not in a way that's gimmicky or uncomfortable.
Right. So this is a perfect tee up for the final stage, which is promote. That's the action that your raving fan takes to actively talk about you and your services. Now it can almost be confused and conflated with the advocate stage, right? Because we just talked about an advocate. Well, they're willing to talk about, they're willing to express their happiness and the value they've gotten from the advisor. So what the heck does a promote stage look like? And I know we can get into some murky waters when we're talking about promotions, because that sounds like endorsement, and I know there's some things we have to maneuver there. But tell me, in your experience, what would a promote stage look like versus the advocate stage?
Yeah. So in the financial industry, you can't run the typical type of pay-to-play promotions that some businesses might, like, refer 5 friends and get $100, and we can't do that. But you can turn people into promoters, and in my view, in this business, people who become promoters are the people who talk about you freely and regularly because they're such raving fans. And that really comes from, it's not something you can always automate. It's something that you have to do by really connecting with people. And so when you show up at the hospital when they're sick and you're right there with them, when they're inviting you to their wedding, when you do extra things for them, you go help them buy a car, you're there in their biggest times of need, through the passing of their spouse or other things, people become very loyal clients and they want to help you. And you can't do that just because of selfish reasons. But if you're genuine and you actually connect with your clients on that level and let them know you always have their best interests at heart and they can sense that, and they know that you're actively trying to grow your business, and you let them know that you appreciate that they're sending people your way, and you go out of your way to thank them appropriately when they do, then they'll become promoters.
That makes me think of a quote I had heard that was, serve first, profit later. And you can't really it doesn't really happen vice versa. You can't really profit in exchange and then serve somebody after that.
No, that's called a scam.
Right.
Right. So Angel, recap the phases of the modern client journey for us.
So we've got the aware stage, we've got engage, we have subscribe, we have convert, we have excite, ascend, advocate, and finally promote.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very helpful. So as you're building any content, any marketing plan, keep these stages in mind because you can't shortcut the steps. Sometimes people will move a little bit between the steps, but human psychology is human psychology, and people have to go through these phases mentally. They don't go from strangers to raving fans. But when you understand these steps and you use purposeful campaigns, you use the right content and the automation and the right timing and the other strategies we've talked about in coordination with each other, you will be always moving more people through this journey, attracting more clients, turning more clients into raving fans and promoters. Your business will grow and you'll enjoy the process. Thank you, Angel, very much for joining us today.
Thanks.